Okay, so the other notes in this class are actually related to analysis of musical form, and this is what the quiz will be about. So let me kind of show what a typical analysis of a musical form is. Right now we were working with individual scenes, right? And we're actually very, I would say, limited or lean in terms of what we expect to make as a musical statement or as a musical excerpt to represent that image or that theme. But we have seen already that for longer pieces, you kind of start putting together and structuring different musical elements to create a slightly more coherent and elaborate expression. So if you want to think about moving between different types of musical elements to create still a musical piece, we can think about different ways of structuring music. So, especially in role-playing game, where we have this clear denomination of characters, unlike just mood or an opening scene. Probably we want to be able to kind of switch between some very well recognized musical elements and create a little musical piece. So for instance, in a battle scene, one possible structure could be an intro, some kind of a build-up, and then we can have a theme, a main theme, a variation, and then maybe a repeat of this theme. So this can be contrasted with something like a boss battle, where first of all we can have a different scene, okay, a different feel of the theme. Okay, so sections will be divided into maybe a slightly different approach to the music, and then the main theme itself will have more instrument, more epic musical expression, and so on. So to give, in some sense, musical meaning to these things, but also kind of a structure to analyze that, we'll create a table that can summarize these structures. But before kind of showing the table, and this is something that you will have to do in your home take quiz, is basically analyze a musical piece and find these structures. Let's kind of listen to some of these examples. So this is a normal battle scene, okay? And maybe let me quickly go back and already suggest you to open this analysis file because this actually gives you that structure. So while we'll be playing that theme, you can actually see, and check out the timings and see if you can actually use this as a guide. And maybe you could just repeat this after we are done, or while you go and listen to these themes. But you can see if, let's say, you can recognize the intro, the build-up, and the theme, and when it starts doing the variations, right? And this is for the first one. And then for the boss track, you have these different sections. You have the build-up, you have build-up B, C, you have some kind of other structure. So let me kind of play a short example of the two Final Fantasy scenes, and kind of give give some room, maybe either to your questions or kind of my interpretations of why the mood changes. So this is the first one, the normal battle scene, with we just play the intro and then maybe the main theme and the variation, and then stop it when the repeat starts. So it's still propelling, right? It was kind of like, and now this thing started, right? So from here you can notice that the theme appears again with variations. So you could see that there was some kind of opening, kind of fanfares or these like trumpet-like calls, and then something like building up from this quiet until the theme entered. And now it actually repeats itself with more action. So this is already kind of transition out of it, right? So something happens, kind of cools it down, and you know, I'll kind of do and go this track and also look at the table, kind of to understand. And these things are pretty evident, especially in music that is more traditionally structured. You do have quite clear notions of when music changes. Maybe a little bit more tricky is to notice when it kind of repeats itself with a variation. But you know, the ability to see these structures and variations is going to be very important for us once we now try our really the final project task will be kind of use all of this knowledge and be able to deconstruct an existing piece, or if I could put it the opposite way around, to construct a musical piece in a way that could have these different puzzle-like properties. So variations is basically taking elements of rhythm, of accompaniment, of theme, and putting them together in ways that create more interest and variety. But not only just expanding the amount of musical material that you have, you might want to keep some elements dedicated to specific things. So if you want an intro, you may be use just the rhythmical elements, and you fade in others as you do this horizontal remix, vertical remixing or layering. You might be able to jump back and forth according to more of the structures. So in some points you'll have actually to repeat the main theme rather than create variations because or trigger another theme if something happens. So the ability kind of to see the common and also the commonalities and the differences is kind of important. If now, you know, the adaptive music type of thinking is really thinking about composing in blocks and layers, and composing with possibilities in mind, scoring for opportunity, rather than totally fixed. But we still keep this idea that we can still structure this into ways that have this sense, because you do still have an understanding what is an introduction, and we do feel when the theme comes in, and we kind of feel when the theme fades out or moves to another theme, or when basically we're in the same theme but more events happening. We also had an exercise, the second one, which was really more about orchestration, right? It's more about taking an existing piece and maybe cutting pieces and you know, allocating them or assigning them to different instruments to create timbres. So the question of like the music itself and the orchestration and how it affects, you know, moving from just a battle scene, which this one was pretty much uplifting, I think. I mean, it was really battle, didn't sound battle to me. That's just how the game calls it, but it seems like more of a play, versus this one that's supposed to be more of a tension heavy one. And it's structured slightly different. It still has a couple of build-ups and introductions, but the main theme and the cool down will happen in a different way. So let's listen to this one. So that's the intro, right? we had a prelude. It wasn't so rhythmically upbeat and low and threatening, but yeah, it gives an atmosphere, right? So any opening in some sense is a prelude, but this is really a short opening that introduces something much more dramatic. So let's move on. And another just a side comment. Sorry, I mean keep interrupting, but you know this is so dense, and you can also hear the chords. It almost becomes abstract music, right? I mean, you don't need maybe for the opening so much. If you want to create an atmosphere, stick too much to conventional musical techniques. Still, things are preparing. So, and now we have the cool down, right? So even the main theme here, I mean, I put it in quotes because it doesn't have the same melodic line, memorable thing that the previous one had, but you can, unlike the first sections, which is just a build up, just more intention, more instruments coming in, this one started showing a little bit of a melody, something you can hum and recognize as a theme. So very different structures, very different ways of building them, and eventually kind of the variations across these. So I would like you kind of to consult that PDF file, this comparative analysis, and what I would like you to be able to do now is incorporate this type of more structural thinking into your composition for the final projects. Again, this is not required for the first three ones, as a way to guide your basically Lego kind of operations on music, but also have some more examples by choosing a game that you like, finding two scenes that have very different contrasting characters and analyzing them. So I think at 4 p.m. today, this quiz should be open, and you'll have now sufficient time just basically on your own to do such an analysis and send it in. Okay, if there are any questions right now, I'll stop the recording and